Look, if you're a CFO or a VP of revenue cycle at an academic medical center, you already know the drill. Those boardroom conversations around your revenue cycle, yeah, they can get incredibly chaotic. You're constantly battling shrinking margins, dealing with rising claim denials, and, let's be honest, your compliance teams are practically living in your office. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack exactly why your revenue cycle is fundamentally different from a standard hospital's, and, more importantly, how the right strategic approach can actually turn this whole thing around.
Moving right along, we have to recognize that the root of the problem here is structural. Think about standard hospital billing. It's mostly linear, right? You bill for patient visits, you bill for procedures, and you're done. But as an AMC, you are operating under this incredibly complex triple mission. You're juggling clinical payer billing, research billing that's tied to sponsored grants, and educational billing governed by GME or graduate medical education rules. And when these three distinct billing worlds collide, well, that's exactly when standard workflows completely break down.
And getting this wrong, it carries massive, massive stakes. $15 million. Just let that sink in for a second. That is the exact amount one medical school in Texas and its partners recently had to pay the government to settle allegations that teaching physician rules weren't met. This is not just some theoretical risk we're talking about, it's a huge compliance exposure. If your billing team doesn't deeply, fundamentally understand the strict Medicare guidelines for when an attending physician can actually bill alongside a resident, your entire institution is on the line.
Oh, and here's another massive landmine for you: clinical trial billing compliance. On paper, the core rule sounds pretty simple, right? Just don't bill payers for services that are already covered by a research sponsor. But actually applying that across dozens of clinical trials, all with different IRBs and complex coverage analysis requirements, it is technically exhausting. Relying on a generic RCM vendor who just doesn't get the specific coverage coordination, that isn't just inefficient, it's a major compliance liability for your center.
So all these overlapping missions basically create a perfect storm of 5 really unique pressure points. Now, we've already touched on teaching physician rules and clinical trials, but add to that the multi-entity complexity, trying to build through hospitals, faculty practice plans, and subspecialty groups all at the exact same time. Then factor in the deep specialty coding required for high-acuity procedures, and top it all off with the famously decentralized culture of academic departments. Honestly, it's a perfect recipe for severe revenue leakage.
But listen, you do not have to fight this battle internally. According to a recent KPMG report, 56% of healthcare providers are already outsourcing non-core functions like RCM so they can actually prioritize clinical excellence. With internal teams stretched completely thin by staff turnover and those insanely complex payer rules we just talked about, outsourcing isn't a last resort anymore. It's become a strategic imperative.
And the numbers completely back that up. To put this into perspective, the RCM outsourcing market hit an absolutely astounding $32 billion in 2024. $32 billion. That proves outsourcing is a massive structural shift in the industry, definitely not some passing fad. AMCs are finally realizing that third-party vendors bring the advanced technologies, the AI, and the highly scalable expertise you actually need to tackle those massive pressure points head-on.
However, a quick word of caution here. You can't just go out and hire a generic vendor. When you're evaluating an AMC partner, please do not fall into the trap of competing on price alone. You need a strict checklist. We're talking AMC-specific experience with GME and research billing. You need certified specialty coding for those complex service lines. You got to have enterprise-grade compliance with a fully documented BAA and Stark Law training, seamless EHR integration, and of course, fully transparent reporting.
And really, this is exactly where ProMantra steps in. ProMantra's revenue cycle management services are specifically built from the ground up to absorb the extreme complexity of academic medical centers. They completely abandon that outdated, one-size-fits-all approach. Instead, they bring deep, targeted experience in managing multi-entity fund flows, expert multi-specialty coding, really sophisticated denial analytics, and rigorous compliance optimization.
So that brings us to a final, absolutely critical question that you need to ask yourself right now. Is your academic medical center leaving revenue behind? If your denial rates are consistently hovering above 10%, or if you're seeing recurring compliance findings in your internal audits around teaching physicians or clinical trials, then unfortunately, the answer is yes. It is time to stop the revenue leak and protect your institution's core mission. Reach out to ProMantra today for a free RCM assessment. Their AMC Experience team can pinpoint exactly where your revenue is hiding and show you exactly how to secure it, so you can get back to what actually matters most: world-class patient care, education, and research. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly encourage you to take that next step and contact ProMantra today.